Good night, Belizeans at home and abroad. This is the Belizean Affairs Show number 370. 370. My name is Leonard Brackett. I'll be hosting your show tonight. Uh, we will be talking a little bit about the Belize Guatemala issue. Previously, we spoke about the Belize Honduras issue and a little bit about the Belize Guatemalan issue. We want to go back and touch on those subjects again, but we want to focus more on the Belize Guatemala issue tonight. We may touch on the Honduras issue a little bit again because it is still at the ICJ and we're not sure what the final resolution is going to be like. So I see one of our other panelists in the background. That's our, appears to be our chief engineer, Mr. Gregory Brackett. And I'll just go ahead for right now while he is doing whatever he's doing in the background. He can bring himself on at his pleasure. So I'll just go ahead and do the preliminaries as we normally we say a prayer, after which we do a little short biblical reading. So I'll bow my head in the meantime and just say the short prayer. Divine loving Father, once again we come before thy presence, asking that thou would continue to hear our supplications. Loving Father, thou knowest our hearts, our desires, even our most secret thoughts. We pray that thou mayest continue to bless our family members, friends, and loved ones wherever they are, as if they were each mentioned by name and number. Please continue to guide and protect us. Please help us as we present this 370th program on our Belizean Affairs show, that we may be able to bring something that is worthy of people's time and effort, and that it all be to the honor and glory of thy kingdom as well. Please help us as we navigate these treacherous waters, and we pray that thou mayest continue to bless our country of Belize, its people and leadership. We also pray that thou must bless this country of the United States, its people and leadership as well, and the rest of humanity, especially those people who are in harm's way and who are being hurt sometimes for no justifiable reason. We pray that thou mayest be merciful unto them as well. For we ask these mercies in Jesus' name. Amen. I'll just put my big Bible here. And yes, I was on the program, hosting the program without my earpiece on. Finally get it on, and so I'll just do a short biblical reading here from, let me see. We'll do Proverbs chapter 14. Every wise woman buildeth her house, but the foolish plucketh it down with her hands. He that walketh in his uprightness feareth the Lord, but he that is perverse in his ways despiseth him. And that is a short reading for tonight, which came from Proverbs chapter 14, verse 1 and 2. I still see Mr. Brackett in the background. I'll proceed. Good night, Gregory. Would you like
Good
to
night,
introduce
sir.
yourself, sir, please?
Good night to you, the people at home and abroad. Thanking you to tune in to this our 370th edition of Belizean Affair. As usual, my good cousin, it's always a pleasure sitting with you virtually on this platform,
The pleasure is mine too, sir.
discussing Belizean affairs. I go back to you.
Thank you very much, Gregory. Um, uh, we have a little uh, house cleaning that we need to bring to the public attention as well as to Greg because, of course, I didn't get a chance at the last minute to inform him. So before we move on, I'd just like to say that tonight on Wednesdays usually is Mr. Roody Wade's night. He's the chairman for the Wednesday night program. But he called me and informed me that he was having a little bit of issues on his internet side, and therefore he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it. So if he does make it, we'll turn the program back on over to him because he has his own agenda and his own things that he'd like to speak to. Uh, but the program must go on, and in his absence, I had decided to um, pursue some of the Belize Guatemala issue in regards to what's at the ICG and what's currently going on. And our chief engineer, Mr. Brackett, Gregory Brackett, is now with us as one of our panelists as well. And just wanted to communicate with him quickly as to whether or not he might have had something that he had prepared in the background that he wanted to present. So if that is the case, then I'll just yield the chairmanship of the program to him to deal with whatever he had planned to put out. And then if we have any extra time later on in the program, then I can touch with some of the other things that I thought I would have to lead with. I'd like to defer to you, Greg, if you do have something that you want to lead with, or if not, then I'll just follow
Yes,
on.
yes, I do, Mr. Chairman.
One
I
other question
thought,
before you go forward. Wait. Before you go forward, do you think it would be wise or viable for us to take on that article that you wrote earlier to I don't know if it was today or yesterday regarding the young lady who was having a problem with customs, and I read what you had prepared and what you had published, and I thought it was a very good item. I don't know if you want to for us to do that tonight, or you want to
yes,
do whatever other items you might have had. I'm just trying to communicate with you because I hadn't had the privilege to, you know.
thank you. Yes, we can do that too.
Okay, and sir,
But
I'll yield to you then for the for you to run with the program for tonight.
thank you,
You're
Mr.
welcome, sir.
Chairman. I want to go back to December of last year.
Yes, sir. But before you go forward, you're the chairman, sir. I yield the chairmanship to you for right now for the rest of the program.
Right, thank you.
You're
I'm
welcome.
acting chairman, Aziz, but I want to go back to December of last year. And the reason why I want to go back to December of last year is to show to the public, the people at home and abroad, how deceitful the government is, knowing that they had sat down in many meetings with the teachers and the unions, and they themselves were putting out there that they were close to settlement, not knowing that they would deceive the teachers into believing that they would get their 4.5 as was promised by them. Let's go to the tape.
Though burglary prone is maintained for a politically connected person. We also asked the FinSec about the matter of teachers' salary advance is being deducted. Many teachers complained that hundreds of dollars were taken out of their accounts in a single deduction. Former Education Minister Oscar Kenya had lashed out at the school managements, blaming them for the miscommunication between the ministry and the teachers. And today, the FinSec echoed similar sentiments.
It's a long and torturous situation. The Treasury is at the end of the line. It is like trying to stop, if I can use this expression, if you try to stop a flood, you don't go to the New Hanover Bridge and stop it there. You do the mitigation upstream. You know? And really, as far as I understand, the difficulty was that some of the school managements, now the managements are, we have this denominational system. Some of the management records weren't up to date. Last year, in an effort to head off a problem, we gave those teachers that were involved an advance with the intention that the advance would be recovered over a period of time because the salary would come in. Once the thing is corrected, the salary came in. And it took a while for the advance to be recovered, and I understand that when the advance was being recovered, that caused some friction. But the Treasury we're all working together to try to minimize and to avoid these problems in the future. But it starts upstream. I'm not pointing blame or anything, but the managements have to submit in time all the records and any changes in status, increments, whatever, because by the time it gets to the Treasury isn't the gatekeeper.
Yesterday, we told you about the roads in the.
Again, I want to prove how deceitful the government is. The government has been sitting with the teachers for months, having meetings and discussion about the teachers' increment and their salary cut that was taken over the COVID-19 period. In December of 2024, the Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Cordell High, got up and specified to the then leader of opposition, Mr. Shineborough, that the teachers would wholeheartedly get their full increment and pay before the Christmas. There was no mention as to what the minister, which was the former Minister of Education, Mr. Paris, has said about advance or what the financial controller is now saying. So how did they reach at that? They want to point blames again at management, and every time there is any discrepancy, they want to speak about files have not been sent over or management did not do what they wanted to do. It's a long term pages of excuses whenever they are caught up. Because based on what he's saying, it seems to me that the government had no intention to really pay the teachers or public officers what was rightfully
I'm not hearing you, Mr. Chairman. I think you might have gotten frozen. Uh, I think the chairman's line is frozen. So, in the interest of continuity of the program, I'll just go ahead and make a couple of comments on the same point that he was speaking to. It appears to me as well that the government, from way back, has been disingenuous in their actions and behavior towards the teachers. In the first place, the teachers didn't have to go out on strike and end up with problems with the government before the government acceded to do what was right on their behalf. Why? Because the teachers are very important part of our governing system, and they are preparing the future generations. We cannot expect to shortchange the teachers and have them come to work and work wholeheartedly and produce the next generation of leaders for us, while the current leaders are helping themselves at the government treasury on the assets of the country to fatten up themselves. The same assets that we have, some of it could have been put in the hands of the teacher as another way of compensating them if we didn't have the cash flow, which according to the financial secretary was the problem at the time. But they string the teachers along with all these lies and contradictions and different storylines and blaming the administration um, of the school system, the administrative bodies of the different school the organizations, and they don't want to take the blame for nothing. They keep blaming everybody else but themselves. When in fact, they're the one that runs the show. Everybody else have to tour according to them. So the financial secretary is going to say that they didn't have the money. They made promises to the teachers. They told them they were going to get their money by December. And where we are today, they still haven't gotten their money yet. And they had taken out money from the teachers without notifying them that those monies was going to be coming out of their salary. So a lot of teachers were expecting a full salary and had their plans to meet their own obligation based on their salaries, only to find out that those salaries was not available and that the government was holding some of their salaries on the basis of the school administrative bodies them weren't submitting the reports on time to pay the teachers. Every time they come up with excuses, they didn't want to pay them. They wanted to penalize them because the teacher had to go on strike and embarrass them and let the whole country know that they were taking advantage of the teachers. Greg, I think you're still frozen. I don't, well, of course, I don't know if you're hearing me still. But
Yes, I'm hearing you
oh,
loud
okay,
and
I'm
clear.
sorry. Let me yield back to you, sir, because you was on a point just now. I was just trying to use up some of your time while you was frozen. Huh? So since you're not frozen anymore, at least right now, please take over and continue from where you were going.
Thank
I
you.
yield back, sir.
But I needed to call this out because then you're having individual who's saying that it was an advance, and nowhere in those meetings or what was publicized had we the public ever heard about an advance. We heard that the salaries and increment would have been paid,
Mm-hmm.
and that is what the teachers was expecting. So now how come with the financial secretary says they gave them an advance just to stop a contention?
Craziness, ludicrous.
In any way, I want to move on with the show because there's a lot that we have to discuss. And I want to go back to the tape to discuss what you were speaking about.
Are they telling me now that every single time a Belizean pulls up at that, they will question the Belizean? Where are you coming from? Where did you buy this? Show me your custom entry form. Show me this, show me that. Is that what they're telling me? If that is the case, then Paul, why don't they put one on Coney Drive? Why don't they put one on the highway here? They can put checkpoints anywhere and ask people where they're buying stuff and where they got it from. Customs officers, why don't they do that? Why do they put it up with a police officer? Why is it a joint operation? Why can't it just be an operation for customs? Because clearly their powers are limited to what they can and can't do when it comes to stop and searches. The power for stop and search is for the police. Customs is saying they have powers. I don't know where they get it from.
I go to you first, Mr. Brackett.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. On the last point the young lady raised, Custom is making claims that they have powers equal to that of the police. As the young lady inquired, she would like to know where Custom got that power from. I recall reading part of what you wrote either earlier today or yesterday, and it hit the nail right on the point. That is that the customs have authority to deal with matters at the borderline and at the airport. Beyond that, customs should have nothing to do with the interior movements of goods and services by the public or the storekeepers or the shopkeepers, other than if they have reasonable, suspicious, um, reasonable suspicion that somebody is contrabanding. And then they can go after that person to inquire and or to investigate further. But they can't just arbitrarily and capriciously put out a stop for people to be stopped arbitrarily and capriciously or just randomly, as if they are guilty of something, just because they are hoping that somewhere or another they will find someone who is violating the laws. That's an overreach. And for them to put out that stupid letter that they put out there, I don't know if they're not getting legal advice from government officials, but they ought to be, because every government department is supposed to have some legal entity that gives them guidance and legal advice, especially if they're going to claim that they have powers that the Constitution tells them and says to them that they're not supposed to be exercising in breach of the people's constitutional rights. We read section 2, we read section 6, we read section 9, section 10, section 13, section, so many different parts of the Constitution that these gentlemen are violating. And somehow they have the impression that the rules and regulations that their bosses or head of the department or their minister or whoever else, and even other laws that the House of Representatives make, as section 2 says, any other law referring to the laws that the legislator makes that is inconsistent with the Constitution is null. It's void. You cannot use an unconstitutional law and consider it to be legal or lawful. So they're going to make rules and regulations to manage their affairs within the department and breach the Constitution. Those laws and rules cannot trump the Constitution. Any legal mind or lawyer or the Attorney General should be able to say that to any government department or clarify it for them. And like I said, there are other lawyers who are giving service to these different government departments, and the government itself, when the Attorney General doesn't know his elbow from his butt, he can afford to go out and hire lawyers like, let's say, Mr. Courtney, Mr. Godfrey, and others at very expensive price to the government. He has done it over and over. He claims that that's what he's entitled to do. So why don't they get somebody that's going to guide them properly to not be violating the Constitution and do what's right and stop the harass and harangue people? When they, the politicians and favored people, are allowed to drive by with unaccustomed goods a lot of times, and nothing is said or done to them. They are not above the law. The law is for everybody. But if you're going to put up a checkpoint, it should be well done. It should be done within the proper guidance. You can't just arbitrarily and capriciously throw up a checkpoint any which way on any which place you want when you want. We're not in a dictatorship country. We're in a country of laws, law and order. They expect people to abide and follow the orders. They should be putting out legal and lawful information, and they should be conducting themselves legally and lawfully. They cannot be arbitrary and capricious in the exercise of their duty, because then what they're doing is committing a crime under the color of law against the civilian population. That is in breach of the constitutional requirement that these lawmen and other legal and lawful people are given the authority of law to serve the people, not to browbeat and harangue and take advantage of the people. When they take somebody to court, that person have to find a lawyer. They have to find money to pay the lawyer, while the government have the public checkbook or the public treasury to pay for a lawyer, or they could take one of the other lawyers that they have on staff or available to them. No regular civilian is supposed to be put in that kind of situation where they have to get a lawyer to go and fight the government for them to at least retain their freedom. I yield back, Mr. Chairman. I know it's going to be a long night.
Thank you, Mr. Brackett.
You're welcome, sir.
But I need to clarify it so the people at home and abroad could understand what the law says. First of all, I want to say this. The law is there, but it is how you use it. You cannot take administrative privilege and try to create a law that is not within the law itself. If you read the post, it says that the Custom Department, the BDF, and Immigration will be doing joint patrols with the police force. That within itself is, if you read it, should tell you that the BDF, the Custom, and Immigration is not solely acting by themselves. That since they're doing joint patrol with the police department, everything falls under the police force. So the power to search, to stop and search, is based on reasonable, articulable suspicion, as you mentioned, known as RAS. But I believe that this is a test of the 13th Amendment where they do not have the power anymore to do a state of emergency to curb crime. So they are putting a test here. If you recall what the Prime Minister said, he will get along with the BDF, the Coast Guard, etc., to see when a state of emergency is needed. Well, now they are putting a test towards a state of emergency because the only time the state will have powers to stop and search anywhere in Belize, any district, any towns, is when there is a state of emergency. Outside of that, the law remains the same, which is they have to have reasonable, articulable suspicion. And how does this law come about? The law, which comes under the criminal code, also gives the police the power to search without a warrant. But it falls within a scope, and that scope says, which was created under Section 25 and Section 22 of the Drug and Firearm Act, says a police does not need a warrant to do a search if they have reasonable, articulable suspicion that you have a gun or you have drugs or there is a premises that have drugs or firearm.
Mr. Chairman,
That is what the law says.
could you
Go
allow
ahead,
me,
Mr.
could you allow
Brackett.
me the privilege to interject a little bit on what you were saying there just now? That law for drugs and firearms is unconstitutional to start with. Okay, let me put that out there. It is unconstitutional because that law was made in violation of the Constitution, and there are many sections that I could cite. Okay, but we will probably get into some of those more in detail as the program moves on and or on some other occasion. But I just want to get that out there clear and straight up front because they're relying on that law that they put into place, and I think it was put into place under Mr. Barrow, if I'm not mistaken. Am I correct on that, Mr. Chairman?
You are correct.
Okay. Because I don't want people to think that I just
But
say
they
full
are
scope.
misusing the law, sir.
I'm coming there, sir. But I want this one point to be established and clearly understood by the public. Okay, that because we have a law that is in place and the law has not been tested in court, it doesn't mean that that law is not unconstitutional, because the Constitution tells you what is constitutional and what is not. So the leaders of our country, those who are supposed to go and make laws, they are supposed to know what the law is, what is wrong when they go and make bogus laws, and what is right when they make correct laws. Because if the law does not fall within the bounds of the Constitution, it is considered to be illegitimate, unconstitutional, null and void, and without any lawfulness or power of legality behind it. Regardless of whether or not the whole House get together and make that particular law, that does not make that law constitutional or legal. It makes it authorizes the law, but to authorize an illegal law means that you're in contravention of the Constitution. None of those laws, as according to Section 2, cannot replace and or substitute or supersede the supreme law of the land, which is our Constitution. And so long as they keep making these bogus laws, as we have been telling them for years now, that's why they keep losing the cases then in court, because they make these bogus laws and they hamstrung the whole public with it. And when once in a while somebody gets up and contests these things and they go to court, it's being thrown out, or they're being told it's null and void, or it's a violation of the Constitution. But in the meantime, they're taking advantage of a lot of people who don't have the money to go to court to get vindication. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
You're welcome,
Well,
sir.
as I said before, they are using the law out of context. And that is why the Supreme Court, now the High Court, formally made a ruling that has a precedent in the case of Kevin Nunes and Brighton Cad versus the Attorney General. Because what the police officers are doing is randomly what they call stop and search that is unconstitutional. You just cannot go around talking about stop and search, as I saw in the news earlier. That happened, I think that was in Orange Walk or so. Three gentlemen was standing up outside a building and they just drove up and got out and talk about stop and search. That has no reasonable articulable suspicion. When one of the young men refused, they arrested him. That is what the High Court and formerly the Supreme Court is trying to prevent, because that is unconstitutional. And even if the custom was acting by themselves, they still have to have reasonable, articulable suspicion that you were about to commit a crime
Have
or
committed
you
a
have
crime
committed a crime.
or will be committing a crime.
That is correct. And I need to bring that out because the next step, we will have a total discussion of what is happening right here tonight.
One other point, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, sir.
Somehow or another, our police department and our lawmakers in our House of Representatives and Senate have the people of our country believing that whatever comes out of the police officer mouth or his head, or whatever order the police officer wants to give you, if it contravenes the Constitution and your rights, you have no right to refuse to obey, and or because they give you an order, that order must be obeyed. An illegal, unconstitutional, and unlawful order is not something that any officer of the law should be indulging himself in, because they, first of all, in order to be a law person, as a police officer, there's a certain minimum basic knowledge that you have to have about the laws that you put out there to exercise. You cannot go out there and under the color of law commit crimes against the civilians and say, well, okay, well, I gave him an order and he didn't respond to the order, therefore you know, I had to arrest him, and because I had to arrest him, he ended up scuffling and resisting the arrest, and therefore I had to beat him down in the ground. You should not be out there harassing any civilians that hasn't committed a crime in the first place. Your job is not to use the law as a weapon against the civilians. Your job is to be a peace officer. That's what PC means. That's what police officer means. Someone who is trying to guard the peace, preserve and secure the peace for the citizenry. It's not somebody who has arbitrary authority to go out there and interact with the general public and do what they want to the public, and because the public refuse or objects to their misconduct or their misbehavior, that then they have to step it to the next level and victimize people. As you said, they turn around and arrest the young man. They should have known what their job is, and then that scenario would not have occurred. But they take they come with secondary objectives, and then they turn around and try to blame you and try to use the secondary instigated actions of theirs to justify having to put you under remand. And when they take you to court, before they get you to court, they're beating you up on the streets in order for you not to complain about them. They want to charge you for resisting arrest and or for hurting or causing injury to to the police officers. They always make false claims and turn around and use those false claims as the basis for them to be able to say, well, you are guilty of a crime. So therefore, the original crime that they were trying to levy on you as a bogus crime, they don't even have to need that anymore. They go ahead and want to charge you for the secondary crime. I yield back, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Brackett. But there is two things that we need to discuss that puts it a little more than what you have just said. One is obstruction and one is resisting arrest. And people at home and abroad need to know the difference. When the police come up to you and they want to question you and they are asking you certain questions without having reasonable, articulable suspicion, if you are not assisting them, they want to charge you with obstruction for not helping them to investigate you,
Which is bogus
which
in the
you
first
should
place.
not do. The second one, resisting arrest, is they want to give you a resisting arrest charge because they are not succeeding in getting through to you when you have done nothing wrong. And the public need to know the difference. Because in order to have a resisting arrest, that is a secondary offense. You must have a primary. So when these young men are being charged with resisting arrest and have no primary, that is an unconstitutional move against them under the color of law. So I hope people will understand the differences. And I want to go to the tape that I am about to play to show you where obstruction of justice come in along with blackmail within the department that is supposed to protect us.
Mr. Chairman, before you play the tape, can I make one other statement?
Go ahead, sir.
Quickly, I'll just do it quick. Part of the problem that we have with our police officers and other law officers is that there is a tendency, for example, when they want to arrest somebody, and if the person is not allowing them to arrest them, without any resistance, they want to claim that the resistance of the person, because they have two or three, and then they choke one person, they choke the person, another officer is beating the person with something, and they gang up, they act like gangs. They gang up on individuals, they beat people down into the ground, and then they turn around and say, well, that happened to him because he was resisting arrest. You choke one man almost to death, and you not expect that that body will flail and resist being, killed. And on top of that, they don't violate your rights. They don't beat them up. You don't choke her. Then you charge them with resisting arrest. All of those charges, most of the time, are secondary, but they are bogus charges. They have nothing to do with the merits of the case. But you back, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And let me go to the tip because this will show exactly what I'm talking about.
Richard Rosado is under scrutiny after a strong letter sent to him by the attorney for a police constable. He's being transferred out of the GI3 unit to the Mahogany Heights station. Now, that's a long way down. And his attorney says it is a punitive measure because, quote, the decision to transfer was made shortly after the constable made known to your office in his capacity as police officer specific incriminating information concerning high-ranking individuals involved in the highly sensitive Budna kidnapping matter, end quote. So, what does the constable know? Well, according to our sources, he has first-hand information and evidence from key police officers who have been forced to take part in the Budna cover-up. These are officers who, as we have reported, have been made to give false statements to put into what the DPP calls a nothing file. Well, our reports say that this was communicated to the commissioner right around the time he was having discussions about a promotion for this officer. In those discussions, the constable, who has a master's degree, was expecting to get a promotion to ASP, which was promised by the previous commissioner. But Campo Rosado said he could only offer him inspector. But now he's getting transferred as a constable. So his attorney's letter states, quote, this transfer is not actuated by genuine administrative or career development needs, but by malice and bad faith. The letter also notes that the transfer is more conspicuous because it is happening outside the transfer period and is, quote, a significant financial detriment and removal from a specialized unit to a generalized remote posting, particularly when coupled with an ulterior motive of malice, is unequivocally punitive and constitutes a gross violation of the department's own stated policies, end quote. So, what happens next? Well, the attorney, Nazira Oak Miles, is calling for an immediate rescindment of the transfer, along with a promotion and compensation, and a, quote, cessation of victimization. The demand letter says this has to happen by Friday, or they will file for leave for judicial review. At the end of October, we told you about the 200.
I go to you first, Mr. Brackett.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Coming back to the Budna affair again, a lot of people have been suborned. A lot of people have been victimized. Quite a few people have been requested to perjure themselves and give false statement in order to try and hold a job, because if they don't do as they are told to do in order to help make this little breeze blow away the Budna issue, then they will have to suffer consequences because they're not cooperating. In other words, the police department is stink from head to toe. Why would that gentleman have to be complaining and looking to seek legal redress? Because he was not willing to cooperate. He was one of those who was not willing to cooperate with the full-fledged Budna affair and the silencing and sweeping under the rug, and because he happened to be in a position where he's able to know certain things. So they know they have victimized the man, destroy his career. They all need to be held to account, and whoever needs to go to jail should go to jail. but they're backing up each other, they're protecting each other, and the main criminal at the head of the whole process is being given a walk, while other people that had nothing to do with bringing this sordid affair into existence are now being sat upon and victimized. We're not in a republic yet, and this kind of craziness is happening. We're not in a dictatorship yet, and this kind of craziness are being allowed and tolerated. And most people would have the impression that we need to have the situation where the prime minister becomes the head of state and takes on all these other powers so that he can then exculpate people at his own will. That kind of craziness should not be happening in Belize because we have the laws on the book. But those laws that we have on the book are being ignored in favor of laws that are not on the book, but that comes from individuals' mind, you know, and affecting people's career. And like it's no big deal. I yield back, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Brackett, but it
You're
goes
welcome.
beyond that. First of all, this police officer, he is now publicly specifying this, when he could have come forward along with the rest of officer and put this out in the public so we the people can hold the department and the government accountable. You heard what I said previously about obstruction and resisting arrest. This is what is called obstruction, obstructing justice from taking place.
Mhm.
And there's a law for that, where the police can get a warrant, and if they know evidence is in a house, wherever it is, or a person, they can literally take that person into custody or go get the evidence from that house. So now that we know this, the
Uh,
DPP can go after this officer as well as the rest of them. Go
Mr.
ahead,
Chairman?
Mr. Brackett.
Yes, sir. Sorry for interrupting you again, sir. But another point of contention, as far as I'm concerned, the law you just referred to just now, that was recently made, is unconstitutional. That law was a revision to give the additional authority to police, and it was done under what they called an SOE at the time. Okay, that is part of the rules that they were trying to put into that SOE to allow the police officers then without any other authority, without having any state of emergency in place, to be able to inherit those unlawful practices as part of their regular conduct. That law about the police being able to just arbitrarily and capricious. In fact, uh, let me stop what I was about to say. Let you continue, Mr. Chairman, and then I will ask you to give me a chance to come back when I find the stuff. I won't, instead of I trying to say what I'm saying with my own words, I always like the Constitution to speak for itself because I don't want nobody to question where they say as being maybe not up to par. Let them question the Constitution. If they're in disagreement with the Constitution, that's their right. But I don't want them to be disagreeing with me and thinking that, well, by disagreeing with me, they're justifying what they're doing as being correct. So I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Time.
But what I was about to say, as a liar, you cannot give the police department until Friday to do what they're supposed to do for this constable, because that is blackmail. You are saying to the police department, if you don't do what you promise, then we will take you to court. when this officer has vital information to a international crime.
Yes.
And we, the people, should hold them accountable. We should not be putting this aside, especially when there's a law called enterprise that's
Mm-hmm.
been used amongst Southsiders, to be specific, gang members, even though some of them might not have committed a crime.
Mm-hmm.
Same law should go for the police department. And under that law, they should haul in every officer that is involved,
Implicated.
regardless if they are up above or down below. So I would hope that more pressure from this would go on the government and towards the police department. Because again, we hear the name that has been put forward, the commissioner of the police force. And to be honest, this is something that is been going on inside government without the people knowing. All these things have been happening until when they come to light. And I hope that what we're doing, showing and telling here in Belizean Affairs, will enlighten you so that you can do your own research into things that are happening in the country. Are you ready, Mr. Brackett?
Um, Not of the specific one that I was looking for, but I'm ready with another part. Let me just read this part here quickly, since I got it available right now. Instead, I have to go and look for it afterwards. I want to read your. Can I go ahead, Mr. Chairman? Mr.
Go ahead,
Chairman, can I
sir.
go? Thank you, sir. I want to read Section 2 of the Constitution of Belize, which Section 2, subsection 1 reads as follows. The Constitution is the supreme law of Belize, and if any other law is inconsistent with this Constitution, that other law shall, to the extent of its inconsistency, be void. Those who have been listening to our program for a long time now remember that anytime we make reference in the Constitution about other law, it is not speaking about the Constitution itself. It is speaking about other law, substantive laws that the House of Representatives and the Senate, in other words, the legislator, is empowered to make. But that does not mean that because they're empowered to make law, that means that unconstitutional laws, illegal and unlawful laws are then valid. Because that would then mean that you're putting the Constitution on its head. Of course, that is what these jackals and hyenas that we have running our system of governance for the last, from we get independence, as a matter of fact, until now, have been doing. So people in Belize are used to whatever the politicians say goes. Whatever the House of Representatives says goes. They don't go back and check to make sure that what was said or what was attempted to be put into law is lawful or is constitutional. They wait till the judge have to render that decision when a case is taken before the court. For legislative body have enough lawyers in there that when they are proposing these onerous and unconstitutional laws, those people should be able to tell the ones that are trying to pass those unconstitutional rules that they're out of order. And they shouldn't be doing that. They should be advocating for the rule of law. But unfortunately, they go ahead, they sit down in cabinet, and the both mass parties conspire against the people and turn around and collude and go to the House and have the House pass bogus laws. And when other people are getting hurt, they don't try and change the law. In fact, they go and pay money from the treasury to hire lawyers like Courtney's and Godfrey and the others to defend the government, for the government to continue trashing the Constitution, violate the Constitution, and do things that they themselves claim are unconstitutional. But they pay handsome money to these guys to go and mess around with the court system. And they also do subordination to some of the judges in our system so that they get the favorable ruling that they want. When in fact, the judges are supposed to be the guardians of the Constitution per se. Any law that they make that is inconsistent with the Constitution as per Section 2 is null and void. And people need to start challenging these things. Of course, like I said, they know that people don't have the money to go through these processes. In fact, we just sue the government under the referendum and the Elections and Boundaries Department for non-compliance of Section 90 of the Constitution. They acknowledged that they were in violation, but yet the judge went ahead and gave them a pass. What kind of judiciary is that? But Mr. Chairman, I want to find the thing I want to read, and so I might as well yield back to you, sir. I'm not too far from finding it. So I'll just yield back, and if I get a chance, I'll come back to it. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I hear you, Mr. Brackett.
Sorry.
I want to do a recap on the port of Dangriga as a rebuttal to what they have put out, and I want to play the tape to let you, the people at home and abroad, hear it again as to what they have said.
The coastline, a pine ridge forest, and the Maya Mountains as a backdrop. There are few places as picturesque as Commerce Bight, about a mile and a half south of Dangriga. But it also has the deepest waters of any port in Belize.
Many Belizeans are unaware that Commerce Bight is the only natural occurring deepwater port in Belize.
And that's why tourism investor Basilio Zabané is spearheading a $50 million Belize dollar pocket tourism and luxury yacht project. Ground was broken on Friday with the area rep, the Prime Minister, and the Minister of Tourism in attendance. Zabané and his company, Southern Deep Port Development Limited, will have to find $50 million. It is something that will be able to find financing to reach completion.
Yeah, as you know, and you're well read and in tune, $50 million is pittance for these types of projects these days, and it's a lot of money is out there, and we believe that I think Belize is a hot destination, and there are investors out there who would want to invest their money into Belize.
To be able to uplift it.
And a big part of stoking that investor confidence is contained in this document. The Parliament approved public-private partnership, which makes the government more than a vested interest. They're a shareholder. I saw the PPP agreement that you all drafted for him. The concessions are very lavish. How do you justify those?
But it is nothing different than what other previous governments have done. Actually, we cut it down, and that is why it was sent back at least times in cabinet, because we felt it was way too much.
That was August 2024, and 9 months later in May of 2025, Raul Roca's Legacy Holding announced that it was, quote, formally engaged to, quote, spearhead the conceptual and technical oversight of the new state-of-the-art port facility in Dangriga. Another release said Legacy Holding has completed the initial regional study aimed at evaluating the tourism potential of the area surrounding the future site of the Dangriga port. And that site is still up. But this morning, the project's parent company sent out a remarkable release saying basically they didn't know. The release says, quote, it came to our attention yesterday that Legacy Holdings of Mexico has information on a website promoting a project at Port of Dangriga. This is unauthorized, and we have requested that they remove the information immediately. Now we note that if you search for the Port of Dangriga or Dangriga Cruise Port, the Roca site is the first one that comes up. The release goes on to acknowledge that Southern Deep Port Development, quote, had discussions with Legacy Holdings based on their stated interest in investment opportunities in Belize. These discussions started in April and ended in September of this year, and no business investment or partnership was established with them. But there must have been a mighty miscommunication which led to the development of this site, which remains live tonight, even though Legacy's principal, Raul Roca, is under investigation for his links to organized crime, and reports say there's a warrant for his arrest.
Before I go into it, Mr. Brackett, did you find what you was looking for?
Yes, sir. I did find a piece of it. Okay, I was in the process of trying to upgrade the site for other people to hear the program. No, but let me just see if I could go back to this piece here. Section 3 of the Constitution of Belize reads as follows. Whereas every person in Belize is entitled to the fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual, that is to say, the right whether whatever his race, place of origin, political opinions, color, creed, or sex, but subject to respect for the rights and freedom of others and for the public interest, to each and all of the following, namely, for example, life, liberty, security of the person, and the protection of the law. And I'll just quote Section 6, which says that we are entitled to, under the law, we're equality under the law. Section 9, Section 10, Section 13, and Section 17, all of which allows us the right and the privilege to navigate just about any part of our country without having to be interacting with and or be sat upon by any police officers or Coast Guard or BDF or any of them trying to put together. Because the purpose of bringing all those entities together is only when you have an SOE where the police jurisdiction and the police capabilities are not enough to be able to deal with the policing affairs. Such as, for example, in the case of an emergency. And it should be a declared emergency. They cannot use powers that are not vested or granted to them, just arbitrarily and capriciously because they're legal entities. There are regular powers, and then there are superpowers, and the superpowers only come when you have a declared emergency. But these jackals and hyenas, they try to pretend that they have the right to use those extra judicial powers against unarmed civilians. And they go about their business bamboozling the process and brutalizing people, slamming people down. You know, in fact, I don't want to get into the details because we have seen enough of that. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Brackett.
You're welcome,
I
sir.
want to say this based on the tape that I just played, because it falls right in line with what is happening within the police department and this police officer. Channel 7 posts about Mr. Roca and the Prime Minister. Channel 7 also showed the ties with his Mexico office space and website. Now the Port of Belize is coming with an output, and I believe this is doing damage control to
Mm-hmm.
say that they had no ties with him and there was no agreement. But I will show you tonight, people at home and abroad, how deceitful these people are. Because you know why? They don't want to tell the truth. And they don't want to tell the truth because you know what? They have been caught up with this since the Prime Minister press has jumped the gun. And I want to play a tape, Mr. Brackett, and listen to what is said in this tape before I give my input on it. People at home and abroad, listen to this tape carefully.
It is expected that this will create jobs and, most importantly, introduce a new part of the tourism sector, which is marinas where yachts can come in and harbor and enjoy the beauty of Belize and be based there. I understand from the Minister of Tourism that in Guatemala, in Rio Dulce, the yachts there have to come out of the country of Guatemala for a minimum of 3 months. They would love to do it in Belize, but there is no marina. And so this seems to be an answer to that particular problem, as well as to attracting other marina yachts that want to use marinas in our waters. Most importantly, it is a tremendous stimulus to the economy of the Sand Creek district and the surrounding areas, creating jobs, attracting investment, and we believe, Madam President, to be very beneficial to the economy of Belize.
Who are these people? Who is this developer that we're talking about, that we will give a port of entry to? And I ask it genuinely. I see in the agreement there's a mention of it was signed by an Emilio Zabani and the government. But, Madam President, who else is involved in this project? Who are the funders of this project? Because this agreement has some striking clauses in there that we could come here today, debate and agree that since from what we know Emilio Zabani is a Belizean, but there's nothing that prevents him from unilaterally divesting himself of these shares next week and give it to somebody else without even telling the government. Or if he can't meet, or his company can't meet his obligations, these funders can come in and just take over the port.
Now I want to say this. There is nowhere in the world that a government will go to the House to pass a bill, especially one that will give up tax breaks and concession for a cruise port without knowing who that individual is. So what the private investors are trying to say with what they put out and what the government is trying to say, which is ludicrous, is that they went to the House and passed this legislation to a ghost. Now imagine, you are giving out concession, you are giving out tax break, but there's nobody on the other end that is involved in it. How ludicrous is that? And you went and you did it so quickly. It was done the same time in 2024 after the visit. So, Mr. Brackett, let me hear you on that. Which government will go to the House and give out those concession and tax break Mr. Zavani don't have the equipment to do those kind of structure. So let me hear your input on that.
It's the same kind of jokiness they're trying to pull on us that they did with the Portugal agreement. Okay? They never stopped and they will never ever stop. That is who and what they are and what they're about. They call it business. A business in which Belize as a country gets no benefits or profit or shares in that business, but that the powers and authority vested in the governance of the country is brought to bear on behalf of, like what you have said, Wanguas. Because the question was asked in the House, in the Senate, who the people are that these things are being put in place for. And apparently, our Prime Minister had to be pulled in by the American embassy in Belize and shown some of the evidence of information that he thought nobody else had or was available to anybody else. He got his butt scared based on what they told him and showed him. Because he thinks that he can browbeat we local Belizeans at home there, go abroad and meet with all these powerful people, go back to Belize and use his position as Prime Minister and whip up the support of all his buddies in cabinet and other people in the House and go pass laws suborning for we country and for we country's interests. And I feel like, well, any of us who dare to get up and speak on these matters or about these matters should be crucified, should be vanquished, should be sent to Guatemala, Honduras, or any other part of the world, including, wherever. As Belizeans, all we are asking for is to have our government and governance powers accrue and being used for the welfare and the benefit of the people of the country. That's all we're asking for. They could be doing a hell of a lot of scampishness as they actually are doing, as a matter of fact, and still be doing the affairs of the country or managing the country. But to the exclusion of managing the country, they're dealing with their own nefarious affairs, and to hell with the country and the rest of us. And that's where the problem lies. We don't have people who are seriously committed to governing our country, and therefore they expose we country with illegal activities and unlawful contracts that other people could hold over we head and dispossess we of our assets. And then the man pretend like they don't know where they're going. Nobody in the cabinet know what's going on, but everybody else in cabinet is silent about these things. Nobody asks no question. Everybody just roll along. Why? Because the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister, and he's the leader of cabinet, and whatever goes on in cabinet, whatever conspiracy takes place in there, contrary to the best interests of the country, is a secret. And whether some of them like it or not, if they disagree, they still have to toe the line. Why? Everything that comes out of cabinet intended to be made into law in the House of Representatives and voted on the Senate is supposed to be by consensus. So they play the system and play the country and the people and then get themselves fattened. Because when the port at Stan Creek is developed, these guys will have interest in it. That's why they fight so hard and so burn the country's governance power so stridently. And without any fear. The only fear that was put into Mr. Briseno, they know what we tell him, either do wrong or we ask him to do right. that the fear because an external power had to bring down some influence over your head. And no only him they run for like cockroaches now. A lot of the other ministers, them or potential ministers, them are running for cover. They don't want to lose their visas. They don't want to lose their chance to travel to the States or whatever. They don't want to lose their business connections, So everybody try to figure out, even the person where the Prime Minister is putting up front right now in the person of Mr. Fonseca to lead the next possible government if they were to win again. Because Mr. Cordell Hyde as Deputy Prime Minister is not likely to have enough support in cabinet for him to become Prime Minister. Maybe they might keep him on as deputy to somebody else. Maybe as deputy to Mr. Fonseca, for example. But at the end of the day, if Mr. Fonseca is refusing to go along with the Prime Minister's misbehavior, why? Because they're getting flagged right, left, and center by local Belizeans, by Belizeans abroad, and by local politicians and other government abroad. Does Belizeans have any idea what kind of doo hole we in right now? When the United States of America have all them guns under its gunboat diplomacy pointed at Venezuela, do we, as a microcosm in our area there, understand and realize what kind of hell for we government to put we in? When then they claim in America that then they don't have to discipline these people because of drugs, and for we knucklehead leaders them to pretend that they're above Venezuela, or they have some kind of powers or whatever it is that in their head they perceive themselves as being safe and secured. Are you back, Mr. Chairman? I'm getting a little ancient on the collar.
Thank you, Mr. Brackett.
I don't want to say the wrong thing.
I want to go back to 2 tapes that I play to show you, the people at home and abroad, how I believe, it is my belief, that they know exactly what they were doing. Let me go back to the first tape and I will stop it at a certain spot.
It is expected that this will create jobs and, most importantly, introduce a new part of the tourism sector, which is marinas where yachts can come in and harbor and enjoy the beauty of Belize and be based there. I understand from the Minister of Tourism that in Guatemala, in Rio Dulce, the yachts there have to come out of the country of Guatemala for a minimum of 3 months. They would love to do it in Belize, but there is no marina. And so
I want to stop it right there. Yachts from Guatemala can come into Belize if this port was finished and there was a marina. How much of you people at home and abroad know that Mr. Raul Roca is an honorary consular stationed in Mexico for Guatemala? So don't tell me there's no ties there. I believe there's ties and they know what they were doing. I want to go to the next tape and I want you to listen what the Prime Minister said.
Before you do that, Mr. Chairman, one other point quickly.
Go ahead, sir.
How many Belizeans have yachts that will go and park their yachts at that facility that these guys are developing? That's for people, like you said, in Guatemala and other countries who navigate the world, and they will come to Belize. That's what they are trying to set up. But who is going to benefit from it? Not our treasury, not our Belizean local people, because they promise that give jobs to the people in Stan Creek. But when that stuff is developed, they don't want no poor people in a finance environment. So then they take away for some fool again. And at the end of the day, the money that is being invested and the project that is being built is just one other way. I gotta stop. I
Let
can't say
me
what I
go
want to
to
say. Let me stop.
let me go to the tip because
Go
as we
ahead,
say here in Belizean affair, we show and tell, and these people always tell on themselves.
and each other.
I want you to hear when the Prime Minister was questioned by Mr. Vasquez, what he said.
The coastline, a pine ridge forest, and the Maya Mountains as a backdrop. There are few places as picturesque as Commerce Bight, about a mile and a half south of Dangriga. But it also has the deepest waters of any port in Belize.
Many Belizeans are unaware that Commerce Bight is the only natural occurring deepwater port in Belize.
And that's why tourism investor Basilio Zabane is spearheading a $50 million Belize dollar pocket tourism and luxury yacht project. Ground was broken on Friday with the area rep, the Prime Minister, and the Minister of Tourism in attendance. Zabane and his company, Southern Deep Port Development Limited, will have to find $50 million. It is something that will be able to find financing to reach completion.
Yeah, as you know, and you're well read and in tune, $50 million is pittance for these types of projects these days, and it's a lot of money is out there, and we believe that I think Belize is a hot destination, and there are investors out there who would want to invest their money into Belize.
To be able to uplift it.
And a big part of stoking that investor confidence is contained in this document. The Parliament approved public-private partnership, which makes the government more than a vested interest. They're a shareholder. I saw the PPP agreement that you all drafted for him. The concessions are very lavish. How do you justify those?
But it is nothing different than what other previous governments have done. Actually, we cut it down, and that is why it was sent back at least times in cabinet, because we felt it was way too much.
That was August 2024, and 9
Bunch of
Now
scoundrels.
you heard what the Prime Minister said, it was too much and they cut it down. So, if you are saying it was too high and you cut it down,
But Mr. Chairman,
is
you
that
never know that who that the person who made the talk about that it goes.
right?
All
So,
of them on the life myself as well.
how can you not be negotiating if you are saying something is too high and you are cutting it down? It makes no sense.
But you never know that who
And
the
you
talk
will
to.
go to the cabinet and you will pass this legislation for the port,
And bring it to the house and pass it at the house.
but nobody exists on the other side because there was no negotiation.
All of us supposed to be a bunch of fools out there.
So he's giving away this tax break and these large concessions to nobody. Now imagine that. I go to you, Mr. Brackett, for
Thank you
your
very much, Mr.
comment.
Chairman. I'll make my comment kind of short. Why is it that our Prime Minister always, without exception, believe himself to be so slick and so much of a exceptional bamboozler that everything that come out of him mouth we're supposed to swallow without doing our own due diligence? Does he not understand that there are Belizeans that exist in this world whose pay grade is a little above what he's offering? And we have the ability to be able to learn and know these things and get the information, source the information, and know what he's trying to do before he even attempts to do it. The man have no sense of reality. And yet, because he is in such a lofty position, he takes us all for a bunch of fools. And all he does is make a fool of himself and our country. Because the American government should not have to have been in a position to bring down no fire and brimstone on your head. But when they are doing that, they're doing it also on our head, the Belizean people. Okay? That gentleman is not as smart as he really would like to be. And yet, because we entrust him with all governance power, he feel like he have the right to bullyrag we, mistreat we, compromise we, and then talk to we like we are a bunch of Lee picnic. Well, not just picnic, because you could talk to some picnic and you're very friendly with them, or you're very nice to them, or you're very, the man treat you like we are the enemy. All we want that for we country to move forward and succeed. We can vouch for every investor who come in our country and want to help move the country forward so that they could make one part of the pie. But make them pay their fair share of the taxes, man. Make them help we help them. Not make them help themselves to we and walk all over we and mistreat we. There's a lot of money to be had, like when Mr. Mala say. A lot of money is out there. Good money, bad money. Now, what happened to the Prime Minister now and all those who sat down in cabinet and came to the House and vote that craziness in the House? When the American government is telling them that the money that's supposed to finance things there is coming from drug trade money, and therefore the Prime Minister have to be careful because he could get hauled in just like the Honduran president, Miguel Harlin, and put in jail for 40 odd years, and then recently got, pardoned by the existing president. Does he think that he's above any of those possibilities? Nothing like that can happen to him because he's so big and powerful and he deals with big and powerful people. Why doesn't the man get a sense of really what's going on? He's friends with these people from way back when his father was friends to those people. The bottom line is that when push comes to shove, then people want to throw you right under the bus like a Lee puppy. No, I'm big pop. I'm Lee puppy. Because in the bigger scheme of things, that's what we represent in Belize with a small fish. Okay? We don't got no powers to influence and roll with the big boys. Whenever we deal with the big boys are roll over we. But at least get something positive for the country in exchange too, as a minimum. And if you can't do that, stay the hell out of the kitchen. Not go in there and get, and then haul we in there with you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Brackett. We have come to that time of our program.
You're welcome,
and
Mr.
before
Chairman.
I close, I want to leave you, the people, with this.
Corruption is a vile disease that sucks and drains the health out of something good. Corruption in society is an evil moral infection that keeps community in a state of perpetual sickness. Corruption is a moral virus. It's so potent it leaves its host sick, lethargic, and unable to realize and accomplish all that a well person can. Where corruption thrives, poverty and not prosperity thrives. Wealth is grabbed into the greedy, grubby hands of those who get fat on the toil and labor of good people. Corruption benefits, only temporarily, those who participate in it. Government should be protecting us from the foul results of corruption instead of being the proponents and participants in corruption. When corruption is systemic, when it's a culture and a way of life, when corruption thrives, it destroys the health of the community and nation. Now let me tell you something. Defeating corruption is a very difficult thing. The love of money is the root of all evil, the Bible says. People who love money will do almost anything to get it. Those who choose to stand up against corruption, you need to know that we're going to be involved in a war. We will be threatened, vilified, intimidated, marginalized, and ridiculed. These kind of people who stand up against corruption will often feel alone, as if they are the problem instead of the solution. Corruption can only be defeated when enough people have had enough and decide to do something about it. Corruption is a vile disease that sucks.
With that, I would like to
nice
say
nice program, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, Mr. Brackett.
I'm
With
happy
that,
that
I
I
would
yielded to
like
you.
to say good night to you, the people at home and abroad, and thank you for tuning in to this, our 370th edition of Belizean Affairs. Good night to you.